2001 from IIEST, formerly known as B College Shibpur, and MS in Computer Science in 2003 from State University of New York at Albany, USA. After working as a research associate in the Brain-Computer Interface Lab of Wasatch Center, New York State Department of Health for a while, he came back to India and obtained his PhD in 2009 from ISI. From 2006 to 2013, he was an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Jadavpur University. From August 2013, Dr. Goutam has been working in ISI Kolkata as an assistant professor. His research area consists of artificial intelligence and machine learning in the pre-PhD phase, cryptology and security during the PhD phase, and currently quantum information and computation. In 2012, Dr. Pal received the prestigious Alexander von Humboldt Award of Germany, and in 2013 the Young Scientist Award from the National Academy of Sciences, India. Besides scientific research, Dr. Pal is also deeply interested in the interface of science and spirituality. While studying MS in USA, he used to conduct sessions on scientific understanding of Bhagavad Gita for university students. He co-founded the Club for Applied Spiritual Technology in Albany Medical College, New York, and used to organize weekly discussion sessions on body-mind, mind-brain connections and holistic health for the doctors and MD students there. Dr. Pals also has several discourses to the MBA students of Army Institute of Management, Kolkata, regarding relationship between science, spirituality and management. He delivered a lecture series on science of yoga to the masters and PhD students of several engineering disciplines of RWTH Aachen University, Germany. At present, he regularly lectures in different schools and colleges in Kolkata and counsels their students on practical application of yoga in modern day-to-day life, such as concentration boosting, mind control, stress management, lifestyle management, positive thinking, psychic and social health, etc. Our theme, today's theme of this topic, the third topic, that is the psychological and social impact of food, including issues like taste, addiction, etc., violence and non-violence in food, and its relation to ethics and spirituality from a non-sectarian point of view. So I will request Dr. Goutam Pal to come to the dais and present his speech.
Thank you. So, am I audible in the back? Yes. Okay, so I think I do not need any microphone, right? Or I don't know. Okay. I don't like this. Okay, so thank you for inviting me to give a lecture on this topic. It's a very complicated topic, but I will try to simplify it and present the basics. Okay, so the title is Food and Human Mind, Psychological and Ethical Perspective. So the first thing that I want to say that in the morning sessions, a lot of things have been told against non-vegetarianism. So many of you are disappointed, and I felt that I should sympathize with you, and therefore I have come with some good news for you, that vegetarianism is also not all good. Okay, so be happy. So, for example, this is a pure vegetarian food. Totally from plant extract. Another example is also nicotine, like alcohol, so that's another plant-based food. So the point of my talk focuses not only on just vegetarianism versus non-vegetarianism, but the aspect of food as a whole and its impact on the mind. Okay. So the first thing, So the first thing that I want to focus on is addiction. Fine. So, there is subtle difference between liking and addiction. Everything starts from liking. So from liking it goes to wanting and then needing. From needing it goes to craving, and then when it crosses the threshold it becomes addiction. But there are some foods which are more likely to become addictive if you consume it beyond a certain threshold. And some other foods, even if you take, for a long time or a large quantity, they do not become addiction. So whether something will be addiction or not, it depends on the person, of course, the bodily structure, bodily feature, the neurological structure, but it also depends on the food item also. So independent of the individual or the person's specific neuropsychological pattern, independent of that, some food items are explicitly marked to be addictive. So there are specific reasons for that, and we'll focus on that. So this is how actually drug addiction works, and this drug can be anything. So alcohol, cigarettes, these are also drugs, and this theory applies to other drugs also, like say brown sugar, marijuana, LSD, and stuff like that. So basically how they work, this is a simple structure of the brain, and you can see that there are neural pathways shown from hippocampus. The yellow line is dopamine pathway, the red line is serotonin pathway. Basically these are happiness producing hormones. So there are 4 or 5 happiness producing hormones in the brain. They are called endorphins, and dopamine and serotonin are one of them. So basically what they does, these yellow dopamine, they work with rewards or motivation. So when you do something and you get some reward or benefit out of it, so your brain creates a feedback and it boosts you to repeat that action again, because you will get that reward again. So reward, pleasure, or say motor function, compulsion to do something again, preservation, these are attributes of dopamine. And for serotonin, these are more functional, like for example mood, memory processing, sleep, cognition, etc. So these two sets are different. And the way drugs work is that, or addictive items, that means items that are marked particularly addictive, they initially will create dopamine and serotonin artificially, but then in the long run what will happen is that they will block it. So first they will activate dopamine and serotonin secretion artificially. So when you initially consume it, you feel pleasure, you feel reward, you feel happy, and you may feel good memory, good memory processing and sleep capability also. Because I remember when I was starting in BA college, we used to stay in hostel, and people used to smoke ganja. It was very popular that time there, and so there are our seniors used to tell us that that if you take ganja you will get job early because your brain will sharpen. So that kind of a thing, and actually they were correct in some limited sense, because initially when you start taking it, it do boost your memory and cognition, etc. But what doctors have identified that these addictive items in the long run, so if you take them regularly, then it tends to reverse the role. So it will block the secretion of these hormones, and in order to produce them more, you need to take more. So initially, say what 1 gram would have the capability of producing, later on you have to take 100 grams of that, then 1 kilogram of that to produce the same effect. Okay? So that's the idea how these things work, and so they are totally different from your natural source of happiness and say pleasure. So for example, if you do say well in exam, or if you get a good job, or if you celebrate something with your friend, you become happy. That time also these dopamine and serotonin are also secreted in your memory, but those are naturally secreted. So these do not cause addiction, but the drugs do. So that's how addiction works. So there is one picture of long-term consumption of alcohol versus non-alcohol. And this is not an old person, it's a 20-year-old female, you can see. So the red part of the brain actually show the active, active neurons during some memory task. So both were given some memory-related task, and you can see that the non-alcoholic person performed better, and the source is there, the reference of the journal. Okay. And there is another diagram. So SPECT is a special type of scan. So you can see that a healthy brain and an addictive brain. So there's a lot of defects. Similarly, nicotine, all of us know, this is a healthy lung and this is a smoker lung, and it also has the same effect on the brain in terms of addiction. This is physics, and the brain I have already mentioned. And well, so smoking is also related to psychology. So bodily it affects the lungs and other stuffs, but as I said, like other addictive items, it's also linked to the hormonal pathway in the neuron. But apart from the brain, just purely from psychological point of view, you can analyze smoking. So these are the classification of different activities that people do while smoking. So the first one, the highest one is for partying. The next one, so the unit on the vertical axis is percentage of anchoring events. So how many percentage of total, so if you take 100% to be the total smoking activities or total smoking activities of all the smokers of the world, if you take that as 100, then what are the different percentage distribution across different activities? So the highest is partying, the next is work, the next is drinking. So smoking is heavily associated to drinking. So that's a very high statistical correlation. Then Greek events. Greek events means you are surprised. So you don't expect an event to happen. Some weird event happen, you are perplexed, you don't know what to do, so you smoke. So, okay. The next one is vacation. Okay, so you become lazy and lethargic. Okay, so you pass the day smoking. And then the last one is school. So the school is last one, but the habit starts in the school, and the same people actually grow up to cover the other activities up there. And one interesting fact is that adults with mental illness are 70% more likely to smoke than adults with no mental illness. So if you apply it statistically, then so that means the people who do smoke, of them, many people would be found who are actually mentally ill or psychologically ill. And in fact, addictions, when they are treated, so people do counseling, people do psychological treatment, people give neuropsychiatric medicines and all. I think many of you know these things. So that's the thing. It is not only our physical demand, but also our mental demand. Okay, so alcohol and cigarettes, many of us are already convinced. So we don't need to say much things about that. But what about tea and coffee? These are also vegetarian food, and the British tabloid Mirror said in 2014 that 80% of people around the globe drink the stuff daily. Okay. So it's much more than meat consumption. And what happens? So it actually triggers a fast release of adrenaline in your system, so which makes you forget your sleep. You become awake, you become alert, you tend to concentrate more on work. That's what people, some people who drink coffee, they need in the morning 1 cup of coffee, and then they can start working in the office. Otherwise, they can't start function even their day. Or if some people misses their morning tea, then the whole day is gone. Something is missing, right? So it triggers a fast release of adrenaline, which is good. Any kind of activity requires adrenaline. But again, it works just like your alcohol and cigarette, but at a slower speed. So if you consume alcohol or cigarette, the decay is faster. Here the decay is slower. Probably over a long run it will happen. So again it blocks. So the same thing which boosts your adrenaline, the same thing blocks your adrenaline, and again the same adverse effect goes on. And there was an experiment done with 2 groups of secretaries, and that was also reported in this tabloid magazine. So one group was coffee drinkers, the other groups were not. And these are not coffee addicts, these are coffee drinkers, so maybe 1 or 2 cups a day. So the coffee drinkers typed faster, okay? So that was good than the non-coffee drinkers, but the catch is, though they typed faster, they made 10 times more mistakes than the non-coffee drinkers who typed slower. So you see, everything comes at a price. I mean, you become more active, but more active does not mean more productivity. So, in computer science terms, it's the throughput, or ultimately the output that matters, not how many times you are processing and how fast you are processing. Okay. So according to Dr. Joseph Marcola, he's a New York Times best-selling author. According to him, even 1 cup a day can create addiction in the long term. And, to different person, that addiction may come at different stages. Somebody may be addictive in 1 year of drinking. Somebody may be addictive in 20 years of drinking. So that will depend on the individual traits. But as a chemical composition, it is addictive stuff, and even 1 cup is enough for many people. And the reason it is addictive is that when you quit a non-addictive item, you don't feel any withdrawal syndrome. But when you quit an addictive item, you feel withdrawal syndrome. So that is another feature of classifying any food or any item to be addictive or not. And indeed, tea and coffee, even 1 cup drinkers, they face withdrawal syndrome, that as studied by Dr. Joseph. And these syndromes include headache, drowsiness and fatigue, irritability, depression, trouble in concentrating, so without the tea and coffee, so they need that more, and flu-like feelings of nausea and muscle pain. Okay, and people say, because I didn't have tea or coffee, that's why. But these are withdrawal syndromes. Okay, so this is a 2014 book. I found it that the ultimate guide to overcome caffeine addiction. So that means people are aware of it and people are trying to quit. And it says the most effective permanent solution to finally cure tea and coffee addiction for life. This is just one example. This is not an advertisement. You can find many more. So this is just to show that people are becoming aware. Then another surprising thing, that sometimes we are told, particularly in yoga, in the philosophy of yoga, to prohibit consumption of onion and garlic. But what are the scientific bases? Are there any adverse effects? Of course, in Ayurveda, there are some good effects of both onion and garlic to some specific diseases. But so are there for antibiotics. So antibiotics also are very good to cure specific diseases. But would you like to take antibiotic pills regularly without any disease? Of course not. So similarly, in Ayurveda, a lot of benefits of onion and garlics are there, but it has to be taken as a medicine under the prescription of a bona fide, authentic Ayurvedic doctor for specific diseases and for a specific amount of time, not for regularly, just like antibiotics. So, what if you take regularly? So, chemically, they belong to something which is called allicin. Allicin is the group of vegetables of this category, and they are rich in sulfonyl ion, which is SO. And this is similar chemical structure as gunpowder, or barud we say in Bengali. So the New York Times, June 8, 2010, the article was the chemical weapons of onions and garlic, and it showed that how chemically it is similar to gunpowder. Another reference, Dr. Robert Beck, Doctor of Science, linked the toxicity of onion and garlic to sulfone hydroxyl ion, and according to his research, it penetrates the blood-brain barrier, it desynchronizes the brain waves, it causes attention deficit disorder, and not recommended for those who perform activities requiring concentration and mental activity. This is spelling mistake, it should be activity. So, I mean, according to me, any activity requires concentration and mental activity. Whether you are studying for exams or for anything, whether you are in the sports arena, or whether you are a performing arts person, dancing or singing, anybody, anything, any activity that you do as a profession will require concentration and mental activity. So basically it is not recommended in general for daily consumption. Okay. So next I would like to talk about the distinction between taste and addiction. I don't know what's happening. Okay. So I'm putting my hand. So some things we identify as the taste, and some things we identify. I think the battery is down. Because the light is. Achha. Let me continue, okay, until it comes back. So, as I was saying that many people say that, okay, these items are tasty, that's why we are taking it. These are not addictive. Other people say, no, these are addictive. So, let us see. So, what is taste? So, taste depends on overlap of flavors, and this is a very interesting article that I saw in Washington Post this year, March 3rd, 2015. So scientists have figured out what makes Indian food so delicious. So today morning also, the doctor told about some journal paper about Indian vegetarian food. Kind of similar, but here the research was that why the Western foods taste less and Indian foods taste more. Because so when I travel to foreign countries, I see that if there is an Indian restaurant, lot of non-Indians are gathering there than number of Indians, local Indians. So the reason is that Indian food is very tasty. And if you do an independent survey, you will also get the same thing. So what they identified is that each spice that is used in any food, each spice has a set of flavors. So you can mathematically represent every spice as a set of flavors. So roughly there are 50 or more distinct flavors chemically. So that 50 different distinct flavors, they have no overlap with each other. Now, if you use two spices, suppose spice 1 has say 10 out of those 50 total possible flavors, and say spice 2 has say 15 other flavors. So if they have lot of things in common, so if you use spice 1 and spice 2 together in the same meal, one has 10 flavors, the other has 15 flavors, but maybe 8 flavors are common in both. That case, that mixture will be detrimental. So basically, though they are common, in practice, they actually affect the food. That means they affect the taste. The taste is not perfect. Whereas if you use spices, if you mix spices where each spice set is disjoint with another spice set, so the number of flavors covered by each spice may be less. So maybe one spice is covering say 2 flavors or maybe 12 flavors, does not matter. As long as the set is not intersecting, then the combination becomes interesting, palatable food and delicious. So that's what they discovered. And what they were surprised to find that Indian spices, say for example turmeric or say nutmeg or say cloves, cumin powder. So these things, each of them have a very distinct flavor, and they calculated the average amount of intersection between the different spices over different countries. So for example, take say US or Europe or say Japan or China. So you take different countries' food habit, and if you find the average amount of intersection amongst the different spice sets, their flavor sets of different spices, they found that in India the intersection is the minimum. So that means each spice has a distinct flavor, and that actually contributes to the taste. Another interesting thing is taste depends on parasites. So we have a lot of parasites living in our body, and this is a series of video in Animal Planet released in 2009. I think there are 10 videos you can watch there. So basically what they say is that we have a lot of parasites in our stomach, in our blood, in our brain, and many often they actually control our taste. So we think that, oh, I like to eat sweet, or I like to eat say chutney for example, but that may not be my inherent liking, or that may not be totally my mental attribute. Maybe it is totally due to some weird parasite and that parasite is actually, raising this my crave for this particular item. And if you cure it by medicine, then that hankering for that taste goes away. So it requires a deep introspection actually. Okay. So this is another reference for Miss Caroline Burton. So she is a dietitian and a chef and a psychotherapist. Especially she deals with, specialized with disturbed eating behavior. Try to counsel people and try to fix their eating behavior. So in 2014 article, she wrote that taste depends on another thing, our memory also. So when we see a food, so basically the brain imagines how this food might taste by reactivating old memories. So in the past, if you have a bad experience of a taste of a food, that stays in your memory and that affects your perception of taste in the next time when you consume it. And what she has realized from her counseling other patients, that by practicing mindfulness and living as much as possible in the present, so again this is very difficult to achieve. In the later part I will try to say something how this can be achieved. So basically what she says that when you taste a food, maybe you have tasted the same food 1,000 times before in your life, but you have to forget each memory of that particular food, how it tasted previously. Not forget consciously, because consciously you may not remember. Even internally, subconsciously you have to forget. And you have to live in the present so that you can get the real taste. Otherwise the other tastes are virtual. So that is another thing. So anyway, so I just wanted to say that what are the different factors behind taste. And another interesting information is this BBC Focus magazine 2014. So they say that the processed food forces you to overeat. So sometimes when we eat natural food cooked at home, our stomach gets filled after a little amount of food. Sometimes we do not like it. Okay. May not be for everybody, but for most people. But when we eat a junk food outside, or street side food, or any processed food off the shelf and then we boil it, say ready to cook noodles or something, then we feel a good taste. So the reason is that when fresh vegetables are digested by bacteria in our stomach, large amount of acetates are produced, and the feature of acetate is that it actually reduces hunger. So as your stomach gets filled in, if you draw the curve, your hunger also gets reduced, and that is normal. But in the processed food, because it has to be preserved and so many other things, acetates are lacking, and this lack of acetates actually do not make you feel filled. So even if you consume more, you feel that I am more hungry, I need more, and you think it is tasty, that's why I am eating more. And that's why people become obese and all these things happen because of side effects of these things. So overeating. The other surprising thing is that we say that okay, meat is tasty, and in the morning we heard that okay, so we have tastes. Let us assume for the sake of argument that okay, meat is more tasty than vegetarian food. Then still we have a choice, ethical and non-ethical issues and other things, and also health issues, non-health issues. But actually meat is addictive. So according to Dr. Rogers' research, he has written in his book Foods That Heal, that meat has hypoxanthine and other similar substances which are actually very similar in chemical structure to caffeine or theobromine in cocoa, and they have similar effect. They are central nervous system stimulants, they are addictive. And you can experiment on yourself. Try quitting meat all on a sudden. Say from today you are so motivated, from tomorrow you quit meat, and you will feel the withdrawal syndrome, and you will know that it was addictive. Okay? So if you don't feel any withdrawal syndrome, then it was